Hey there, I am so excited to bring together two of my favorite Hubettes, Hera Hub members. I have Rebecca Tall Brown here from the Office of Awesome, and Carmen, say hello up there from North County.
Hi there, hi.
Carmen is the founder of Echo Growth Strategies, and I'm excited to curate a conversation between the two of you today. So Rebecca, I'm going to start off with you. Talk about your business and a little bit about your background. What led you to launch the business?
Got it. So my company is the Office of Awesome, and we co-founded about 4 years ago. And that was after a good 12 years in the marketing consulting space. And essentially, I come from small to medium-sized companies, and I've seen them grow, but very often the brand gets left behind. So the brand itself will be an amalgamation of decisions that a company has made. And then one day they wake up and say, why are the big players in our space so well branded? Why aren't we? And the trick of it is, it isn't just a logo. It isn't just design. Today, brand can be everything from who you hire to the products and services that you choose to launch, the campaigns that you run to talk about them. And companies today want there to be a simple answer, but it's like outsourcing your CFO position. You don't outsource the finance, you don't outsource the brand, you build the brand equity inside the company. And so at Office of Awesome, we have a collective of talent, but we work on establishing the brand foundation. So what's the next 3 to 15 years of your company? What assets are we going to develop? What are your revenue streams? And then what tactics will come from there? What conversations are coming from there? What signature and branded language are you using? So it's an efficient way to hold the brand foundation and develop it without necessarily having to try and see what sticks. So if you were to have a research department and a CMO develop your brand for you, that's essentially the work we do with clients.
I love it. I love it. And Rebecca, what did you do prior to launching the business?
So prior to the business, I worked strictly in marketing strategy. So I build the strategies, and I still do the core of that work for Office of Awesome. And I started to see that more and more, the strategies were really good, but they didn't get implemented fully. And so that's where I partnered up with my business partner. We launched a larger collective, the Office of Awesome. And now we're able to do larger work. And we actually, my business partner and I happen to be at Hera Hub as well. So very, very helpful to have that connection baked in here.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Awesome. I'm going to use the word awesome a lot. I love that. But it's particularly apropos since I'm with the Office of Awesome. So Carmen, I'm going to turn it over to you. Tell us a little bit about your background and your current business.
Sure. Thank you. So I love what Rebecca said, though. I know we'll get into it, but about the feelings that come around a brand. But my company is Echo Growth Strategies, and I launched 4 years ago. I leaped into entrepreneurship. I help companies scale from one to many, often through franchising or licensing. So I am a franchise veteran. I've been in the industry for about 20 years. I've been in multi-unit industries, excuse me, even longer than that in restaurant space. So I've opened many, many, many businesses. I've also closed several businesses in the franchise space when the relationships kind of went bad. I helped talk people out of it. But what I really love is the strategy and the implementation to help companies grow. It's an exciting time for them. I have an operational background, so it's all about building a really strong foundation before they scale, and helping entrepreneurs see how first they have to duplicate themselves before they can duplicate their business model in another location. And franchising or licensing is just one opportunity for them to grow, utilizing other people's capital, and provided that they can button down their systems and their operations so that it's easily implemented and followed by the new entrepreneurs coming into the network. And then as a former dolphin trainer, I use operant conditioning in all that I do. And so I look to support positive relationships in the franchise space between franchisors and franchisees. And if we can get that conversation going earlier on, I believe it's easier for a franchisor to redirect the behavior when it's needed in the system, so that everybody keeps their eye on following the systems and becoming profitable and able to grow their own franchise into multiple units. So like I said, my background's primarily in operations, and I have a lot of legalese. I'm not an attorney. I will often disclaim that. Franchising and licensing is all about contracts. So I come in as a legal liaison to help companies kind of cut out the learning curve as they're ready to launch into the world of franchising.
Fantastic. Love it. Let's talk about, Carmen, a little bit, just maybe a couple sample clients, the types of companies you've worked with over the last 4 years.
Yes. So I work a lot with lifestyle brands. I have a passion for the pet industry. My first clients were pet groomers. They're growing into their 13th location, and they just sold 6, I think, in Chicago. Yoga studio. Happy Yoga is another client that is dear to my heart, and we were talking earlier. When I first started with her, she was kind of what I call a tired operator. She needed to create some space. My motto, like yours, is discipline systems breed freedom. And so we applied everything that a franchise would do to her operation so that she could start to have the vision and put her vision into action to scale. We grew into our second location in year 2, and by the end of year 3, we were franchising. Her first location will get their keys probably this week. We closed that deal in July, so it's taken a while to get the keys, but we identified space, and she's going to be ready to go near Hera Hub in Rancho Penasquitos. And then because of my restaurant experience, I worked about another 17 years dating myself in restaurants. I've helped restaurant concepts as well enter the world of franchising.
Fantastic. Awesome. So I'm going to kind of turn it back to the two of you a little bit to maybe ask each other questions based on what you've heard, to get to know each other a little bit better.
Yeah.
Well, Carmen, I think I'd be really interested. So one of the things that is really important in our world is maintaining brand equity. So it's one thing for a client, usually they come to us, they have a modicum of success, they want to reinvest in the brand, they want to solidify the brand because they know growth is coming. And we want to make sure that the operations of the brand can always meet the brand promise. And so I'd be interested from you, maybe some things that either we can do on our side to make sure we don't overpromise, and also things that you do on your side, looking at a brand foundation saying, great, these are the instrumental elements of this brand. Here's how we preserve it for scale.
Yes. So I think, in franchising, there's 3 things you need to franchise. You need to have the trademark, which is all about the brand, the secret sauce, which is the operations manual, and then you're giving those to other people in exchange for an ongoing fee. But what it really comes down to is what is in that secret sauce, because like you said, the brand on paper and the trademark is just on paper, but it's all what's in that operations manual that's really going to drive the integrity of the brand moving forward. And when people franchise, they don't want that message to get diluted. They don't want it to get diluted by other people coming in that really don't align with their core values and with their mission and with how they want to portray their image to the consumer and into the market. So I think it's really, really important that we try to protect that. And for me, the best way to do it a lot of times is to encourage talking scripts throughout, especially in service-based. A lot of what I do is service-based over product. And so that's the best way to encourage people to have the same message. When I was running a doggy daycare franchise, we had to use very delicate words to uphold that. Our dogs never got in fights. They got in tussles, if it ever happened, and we wanted to preempt that. When you call the owner, how are you really going to communicate with them, from communicating about their fur babies to talking to closing the sale and showing them the value of an evaluation. We had dogs coming in that needed to be evaluated. And so it was really teaching them how to convey that message and why we were the experts in what we do.
Love that. Well, and what I hear you saying is a lot of the things that our clients work with and deal with, it's the nuance. So it's one thing to talk about broad concepts like brand and franchise, but really a lot of our work, and it sounds like similar to yours, comes down to the nuance, because all of those nuances, if you iron them out, we then can have a smooth running brand and business. If I just kind of roll past them and I'm so focused on growth, those little problems mean that I'm not going to grow, mean that I'm going to have to worry about my reputation. And I love even that change in the word from fight to tussle. That is so much of what branding is today is, yes, there are visuals, but how are we speaking about the brand, and how do other people speak about the brand?
Yes.
That excites me. I love that you totally distinguish that in the operation sense as much as in the brand itself.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to parlay it. And I could use another example with Hapa. What is Ohana? Hapa is a yoga studio that provides childcare. It's for everybody in the family, the prenatal people to the postnatal to the dads. Everybody's incorporated into that Ohana, and Ohana is the Hawaiian word for family. And so that's really, really representative of what the Hapa brand is, especially in the community, and what sets that apart. What makes her niche special, and I think what will propel her in the franchising space as well.
Makes sense, absolutely. I'm going to pass it back to you, Rebecca, to give us a couple examples of clients you've worked with in the last couple of years.
Sure. We've had a lot of different ranges of clients. So the one thing that the client has to have in common is they have to do something awesome in the world, or they have to be awesome. So we've been lucky enough to work with some really well-known athletes. We have an Olympic gold medaling gymnast. And one of the interesting things about gymnasts, and you mentioned personal brands, which is very similar, they fall into that category, is personal brands can oftentimes wait for opportunities to come to them. A lot of, especially athletes, are used to being courted. They were courted by schools who wanted to recruit them. They are trying to apply to be on the U.S. gymnastics team in this case. Then what happens is they'll leave that world, and they're very, very great at following a plan, but they don't always know what the assets of their brand are. And so one specific athlete came to us. She comes from the gymnastics world, and her event happened to be the beam. And she came to us with just an idea, which is, what if I was to do boot camps about the beam all around the world? Wow. Now, the interesting thing about the beam is it's just under 4 inches. And it is actually the most,
it sounds scary.
It's
totally.
And it's actually the most mentally challenging of all of the Olympic competitive events, because you're putting all of yourself, and it's more of a mental game than actually a physical game. And so she really started to talk to us more about her philosophy of, you have to be fearless, and how do you develop fearlessness, not just for the event, but for life. And we worked with her, and within, the first 6 months of engagement, she's now running boot camps. This is year 2 for her, but she's running boot camps all around the country. They sell out. It is very focused. It is for not only the recreational athlete, but the competitive athlete as well. And we have encouraged her, because there was a gap in the space. She's very well connected, but she was having difficulty kind of moving beyond just the events. We saw that there were no podcasts in the competitive gymnastics. She also wants to be a commentator doing color on television. So our goal was to say, great, not only can you promote your boot camps on your podcast and bring your network in, but start to interview people who you will be commenting on when you're doing the play-by-play. So kind of like what you said about that growth, there are very strategic ways to grow. The nice thing about podcasts, she can record them in batch and release them over a season, which works around her schedule. So you mentioned your client needing space. Our work is always making sure that the brand works for the individual founder, as well as what their resource limitations are: time, money, if they have a family that they have to divide this with. It's one thing to be fully in service of the business, and it's another thing to say, this client is going to have other goals. How do we support all of that? And there is that nuance and that listening that comes in. But her name is Sam Pejcik, and she is just a delight of a human being. She's all of 27. I cannot wait to see what she does with the next year that she's into.
Wow.
Awesome. Great example. Love
That's
it.
exciting. That's really exciting. I love how it's all well-rounded. You know, it's looking at the whole picture, and I definitely think that, especially with social media and how that plays into the brand, it has to be you have to really protect that as well, as you're nurturing these.
And it's making sure that the income streams are there for corporate sponsorship.
Yeah.
So you know that there's a sponsorship angle on the podcast, there's sponsorship at the event, just now having that conversation, which will help her with growth. But I'm hoping if for any reason she happens to fall upon this, Sam, when you're ready to scale, we've met Carmen. Because there is this piece of, there is only one of her. And I think we've got a lot of high profile clients who become serial entrepreneurs, and they hit that piece of, gosh, I can't be CEO of 4 companies. What do I do? And those folks are fun folks to work with.
They are. It's an exciting time when you can say, okay, you're doing this with such great success here. Let's try to replicate it in another area, especially with something like a boot camp that you could easily replicate. And the hope is to take it to young people, young gymnasts all over. And what's the best way to do that?
Well, and one of the things I will say that I think is so important when people say scale, it is, for me, always about there has to be actual real value that someone is going to give money towards. For whatever reason, marketing has co-opted scale and been like, well, all you need to do is sell a $39 train.
Yeah.
Nobody, if they're not going to actually need that and they're not going to get the value out of that, that is scale that benefits one person, not the audience. So with Sam and with HAPA and the examples that you used, Carmen, that the only way it works is that people are willing to part for their money because they're getting a true value out of it. We cannot figment that. We cannot ebook that. There are ways that you can consider if those are thoughtful revenue streams that people actually want. But brand management, brand equity gets completely watered down when the business owner just sees opportunity and scale and not actually providing a real tangible value that someone will part with their cash for.
Yeah. And actually the word brand equity is fairly new to me. So how do you teach people about that? Because everybody's protective about, this is my baby, this is what I did. But how do you really change that conversation to say there's really equity in this? This is really has tremendous value and we can help you scale that value.
The one lesson, if I have learned nothing else in the last 20 years, is that the client, really the business owner, has to own their vision. I cannot sell them on what is greater than they have seen for themselves. Very often what we can do, though, is they'll start to get a little perturbed that a subpar competitor is doing better than they are. So they'll say, God, I know that they don't work as hard as we do. They're just spending a bunch of money on campaigns. Is that what we have to do to get more business? And they're a little crestfallen because they wanted to just get known for being awesome in a very under the radar way. And I come from this type of family business where my dad was like, hey, if I just put in the time, I'm going to get the results. And he's done it in 45 years time, but he also had someone on his team, me, who said, do you really want to put in these 15-hour days, Pop? I mean, we can do that, but is that sustainable now that you're 62? And so when you start to talk with them about, I see this in you, I actually think you can do this in a very authentic way, but this is what your customers are asking for. So if they're used to being in service, it then becomes, what are your customers looking for? So for many clients, it's, God, that they really wish that they had more of me. We have a client who happens to be in the legal service. So it was, okay, maybe you put in your calendar, calling them once a quarter to check in. And starting to think about, does that help with retention? How do we take the questions from that call and maybe we use that for content and say, when a client is my client, I call them quarterly on my own dime. Then we start to get known for this service, but we want to be very careful that that is contained in a half an hour, that we're able to use content from it, that it starts to feed back into the business. And then they start to say, oh, that's how they know me. That's how they're getting to know me. That's kind of the slow churnings for the smaller ones. For mid-sized companies, it's very much, they're tired of competing over the same message, the same market share, using the same tactics. They're either feeling uninspired or uncreative, or that they have more to offer, but they're not doing it on their own and they know that they need an outside eye to help them vault the brand so they can write like big boys, that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
That person is much more likely to be like, well, this is what we're spending it all on. We used to get results. I've known for years something is wrong, but I'm not exactly sure how to convey that. Why don't you take a look? So it becomes much more of a pure conversation than an encouraging one, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. But I think in either case, it's really, you help them plan with purpose. And especially what you said, you're saying, okay, you're going to give back your time for a 30-minute check-in for your clients, and we're going to make that purposeful. We're going to have a plan. Every time that conversation is going to go the same. It's kind of like, I always share, discipline systems, brief freedom. I'm all about those Monday morning meetings, and you follow the same agenda every time, and it goes through the updates, the new business development, financial status of the company, and anything new that's coming in, schedules, any technological issues, marketing. We hit it all on the same agenda, and I think that's what makes a lot of sense, because you have to make it purposeful, and that calms the chaos a lot of times. And then when you can calm the chaos, then growth follows.
Well, and it sounds like that allows you to have a very quick feedback loop. And in marketing, that's where we can solve so much as soon as we know that something is off. So when you get a weird Yelp review, when you're seeing that someone's saying, God, they really do have an issue with their bathrooms, rather than that becoming a snowball effect, you're able to keep it in-house. You're doing it with the people who hear from their customers immediately. Exactly. And you can make those changes operationally, which means they're changes that'll stick. Exactly. Marketing is one thing to proclaim something, but God, it comes down to operations to make that all stick.
Yes, definitely. Definitely.
So true. Well, ladies, as we wrap up our conversation, I have one more question for each of you. Carmen, I'll have you answer this first, if you would, which is, both of you have been members of Hera Hub for quite some time, well over 5 years, going on, I think, 7.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So Carmen, starting with you, if somebody's a new Hera Hub member, what do you suggest for them to really leverage the platform and the community?
Yes. So what I do always recommend to any new member is that they take the strategic action planning workshop. And that to me was a game changer for my business, and gave me tools that I can reuse and something that I want to plan to continue to do to drive my business. I also encourage new members to take advantage of all of the offerings. The business boosters, I think, are invaluable. You have to put it on your calendar so that you don't all of a sudden go, oh shoot, it's Wednesday and now I can't get there in time. So you have to plan for that. And then my favorite thing are the opportunities to learn how to time block our time and to work with intention. Work purposefully really is a word that keeps coming up. Writer's Lounge is the perfect example of that. And maybe it's not because you're writing a book or a blog, but there's something that you need to work through, and you have 2 hours of dedicated time to go in and set your goal and then shut out everything else so that you're just working on that. So I really encourage them to take part in all of the activities that you provide.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And Rebecca, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of guru hours. There are so many great gurus. And here's the thing, it isn't just for you. Like, as you start to get into the business world, you will find people who are asking you, hey, do you happen to know anyone who works in a nonprofit space? And rather than coming up with a no, I don't, you now have the ability to add some value to somebody. But don't just throw a name. Actually get to know whomever it is that you want to refer, and be that quality referral source. I used Janelle Ward yesterday. She works in the grant writing and fundraising space for nonprofits. My company happens to be doing a very large pro bono project this year, which you helped us thank our client for. And we're now at the point where they need grant writing support. I work in branding. I don't know a thing about grant writing, but I can get information and I can get a referral. And we have done the same thing around bookkeeping, tax strategy, legal needs. It is such, and these individuals, they know what they're signing up for. You're not bothering them. Come with your questions, and if they don't know, they will help you find an answer. And the same thing with the director. If you're not finding the guru that you need, reach out to your director and say, gosh, I don't even know where to start with estate planning, which is a need that came up for me. So it really is a very safe, trusted environment, and no one is heavily pushing sales. They're here because they know that they were helped and they want to give back.
Awesome. Well, thank you both, ladies. I really appreciate your time. It was fun being part of your conversation, and look forward to seeing you soon, Carmen.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks, ladies. Bye. Bye.